That's all of us. Gravity.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order.
Are you ready? I'm just going to read your memo.
I was trying to get my point across. I'd be happy to.
Did you steal my pen?
Did I steal your pen?
It looks like the one that was in my drawer.
Maybe I did.
Security protection.
Hey, folks, we got more business to do here, so we'd like to get started. Okay, let's call this meeting to order. City of North Kansas City, Missouri, regular council meeting, March 3rd, 2020. Could we have a moment of silence? Jesse? Approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Comments from the public?
Good evening. I'm here in two capacities tonight. One is as a representative of Snake Saturday, and I just want you all to know it's supposed to be 64 degrees, and I expect to see everyone there somewhere. Okay? Okay, so I was pretty vocal, and now I'm as a resident and business owner. I was pretty vocal last time about the condition of rental properties in North Kansas City in general, and I am reticent to ever bring up an issue without proposing solutions. So one of the things that I heard loud and clear was that there was a concern about city staff and that we would have to hire people to address this situation. So I have a solution that I'd like for it just to be made known and be considered. When someone sells a home, there's an inspection that happens, and there are companies all over the city that do that service. If a property owner had less than 5 rental properties in North Kansas City, if they were required to have one of those inspections, just like you would if you were selling or buying a home, and turn it into the city by the end of 2020, if you had more than 5 homes, you could have to the end of 2021 to turn that in. We would learn a lot of information about the structural integrity of homes, any of the issues that might be in the homes, just living conditions. We would also know if any of those homes had been turned into multifamily dwellings that we are unaware of, because all of that would be captured in that inspection report. That's on the homeowner, the property owner, landlord's expense. It's a legitimate expense. It's a business expense, and they are running a business. If they need insurance on the property, they need to pay the property taxes, they pay income taxes on it just like any other business. So $350, I think that's still the ballpark of what those inspections run per home. And if they had to do that every 3 or 5 years after that initial one, we would be able to gather information. Then the only thing that we would have to hire from city staff perspective is somebody to review those inspection reports when they're turned in by the property owner. So it's a potential solution. It's one of a dozen that we could come up with, but I did want to be proactive and propose a potential solution, not just a problem. And that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Valerie Swearingen, 3008 Howell. I just wanted to comment on the work session earlier and to address my Councilman Smith's comments that it's not residents, mob mentality versus not. Not all residents are 100% pro bikes. I just want my sidewalks to be fixed so we can walk around Northtown before we put in bike lanes everywhere. So that's my request.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Dunn, and I'm a resident as well. My councilman encouraged us to come out and be heard, and so I certainly wanted to do that as well. The bicycle master plan has been used by some in our community, and perhaps a great many more outside our community, in a way that has created division within our city. They've mischaracterized those opposed to the plan as short-sighted, unhealthy, old, or simply unwilling to change. I don't accept those characterizations, and I urge you to reject them as well. In reality, there is no them and us. There is only us. We, the people who live here, vote here, work here, own businesses here in North Kansas City. And I genuinely believe everyone agrees it's best if people can walk, bike, and drive safely in our community. So why would anyone oppose a great idea like a bike master plan? Personally, my concerns were pragmatic. I was shocked by the incredibly poor design and implementation of the Armour Road corridor to the east. Handicap and parallel parking spaces opening directly into traffic, a myriad of confusing bump outs and pylons, on-street parking that is either rarely used or now the parking of choice for apartment dwellers who already have ample parking in a provided lot, and what appears to have been a total disregard for the impact on businesses along this route. I've learned that much of this work is designed for traffic calming, a euphemism for constricting traffic flow by creating intentional bottlenecks. This results in frequent starts and stops, driver frustration, and often an increased number of collisions. I'm concerned that these confusing designs, even with the improvements, have made our thoroughfares less safe for drivers, walkers, and bikers. I only hope significant modifications can be made before anyone is seriously injured as a result of the current design along Armour Road. If you go to a surgeon, it's not surprising she will focus on surgical options for your ailment. It is the lens through which she views her ability to help the patient. Similarly, I don't fault Bike Walk KC for their analysis of our city. This is the lens through which they evaluate and support urban planning. But like surgery, city planning sometimes requires us to consider other better, holistic, and less invasive alternatives. Some data within the plan, however, is at best of only modest value. Pedestrian traffic stats are already significantly reduced in some areas and time periods due to the recent implementation of the closed campus at the high school. That data now is pretty irrelevant. And while anecdotal testimonies and focus groups provide some insights into a limited population of participants, the new expanded city survey should provide a richer, more comprehensive picture of the community's view of this plan. I hope you all listen to it carefully. Those are not necessarily the folks that show up to the meetings or to have their pictures taken on the sidewalks, but they are important to the city as well. What does surprise me in this plan are the incredibly modest goals and outcomes planners have set for this project, which you'll find on page 35. If we plan to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, change traffic patterns throughout the city, and expect city businesses, many of which are not retailers and do not benefit from these changes, to simply adjust and conform, then we should expect significant results from the plan. Bike mode share is expected to increase 1% in the 5th year to only 6% in the 20th year. And adult daily ridership is expected to increase from 2.5% in year 5 to only 15% 20 years down the road. These modest results simply don't justify the significant investment you're asking of our community. I want to remind folks, too, and while folks were very happy and we had a nice celebration, people need to remember, and our voters need to remember, that the vote that was taken tonight has absolutely no significance with a different city council just a couple of months from now. And people need to get out and vote, because I have no doubt there are efforts afoot to create a council that perhaps looks very different than the one that looks here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
If I may.
You had your turn. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate your indulgence. I pulled out from Macon this morning into the turn lane, as traffic laws tell you to, and merged over into the driving lane and was almost rear-ended because the gentleman sped up because he didn't want me to do that. This is a daily occurrence. I then proceeded to try and parallel park in front of City Hall. And the same gentleman got right on my bumper, so I could not do that, and honked his horn and was very angry with me. So I had my meeting, and then I went to get back in my car in the parallel parking, and a different vehicle sped up as I was trying to open my door. Then, as I was getting out of my parallel parking space, I had lots of room until the car that was afraid that I was going to get in front of them by pulling out of the parallel parking decided to speed up. This week, my business partner videotaped an accident that happened in front of our studio where somebody whipped around the corner from Fayette onto Armour and rear-ended somebody. They're going at at very high speeds, even around that corner. It's crazy. Everything that the gentleman before me just said is something that is worth talking about, because it's not necessarily us residents that live here that are having problems on Armour, it's the people coming to town. And on high traffic days, I can't get out on Armour. It's not doing what we intended it to do. And I will tell you, as a business owner, I've had to put my own personal money into my business every month since October, because August and September, our move over to Armour was fantastic. We were in the black, we were doing great. Since October, I've had to put my own money in. That should tell you something.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on, consent agenda.
I move the consent agenda be okayed as presented. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, number 13.
Rabbit Hole parking lot substantial completion.
Eric.
Thanks, sir. On September 17, 2019, the City Council approved a lease purchase agreement with the Rabbit Hole KC regarding the parking lot the city has constructed at 13th and Knox. That parking lot is now substantially complete. Once the city sends the required notice to the Rabbit Hole that the project is substantially complete and we're tendering possession of the premises to the tenant, lease payments would begin. The Rabbit Hole is now expected to open, I'm told, by Pete Cowden, the executive director, around November. And they have requested that the city delay in sending them the notice of substantial completion and tendering possession to them until the museum is operating and earning income. Should you wish to accommodate this request, we wouldn't be losing any revenue. It would be delaying the beginning of lease payments by 8 months or so. Staff is truly okay with whatever you might choose to do. We're just looking for direction as to whether you'd like to agree to this request.
I mean, there's no real cost to the city just letting it sit there at this point. I mean, there's,
No, sir.
okay, I don't have any problem with it.
I don't know.
So I will move to approve this, or do we need a motion?
You got a motion?
Second.
To approve.
Any discussion? Tom?
In the interim that they're not opened, is the parking lot going to be available
No.
to park in?
Well, right now it's blocked off, and
Is it going to be continued to be blocked off until they
well,
decide?
I think probably so, sir. Just because there's really not a need for it, and I don't know if we want folks parking there, and if we haven't tendered it to them, then I mean we could open it and
I don't
for
know,
ourselves,
because I'm afraid a tractor or something.
right.
parked
I think we'd be
for-
better off leaving it closed as it is
Thank
now. That would be our intention.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 14.
North Kansas City Rotary Club improvements to Memorial Park.
Eric.
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahoto.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The North Kansas City Rotary Club approached the city a while back about making some improvements in Memorial Park. They applied for and were granted a grant to help fund those improvements. And Eddie James with the North Kansas City Rotary Club is here to present.
Okay, so we used some of the HEROES grant from we got a year ago, and we've applied for a Rotary grant, about $15,000, and all of it's going to be applied to the park. So I've worked with Pat and some of the other city people getting some initial approval. And we're getting help with the high school Rotary Club, Josiah Menendez. So anyway, so the plans are now, we're going to put a new flagpole in because the other flagpole is kind of old and rusty. So, and then around that, put like a little flower bed retaining wall type thing. And then we're going to, inside the monument, replace the shower board with something nice and kind of make it match the monument. And our goal is to put a placard with Don Ballard, the Medal of Honor winner, in there as well. And then March 28th, I talked to a gentleman, I can't remember his name. Yeah, Drain. And we got about, how many kids from the high school?
As of now, 42.
42 kids signed up on March 28th. We're going to take all of the, around the Statue of Liberty, we're going to take all that landscaping out and put new stuff in. So there's no cost to the city. The Rotary, we have an engineer that's going to design it, and it's all going to be sweat equity in there. So, and then we're going to put a sign up commending the park, of course, with the Rotary emblem on it, but it's going to have Memorial Park and something about the intent of the park, which is the veterans. So anyway, I think you guys might have a diagram of kind of what it looks like. So anyway, we're here to present that to you guys. So anyway.
We got a motion?
So is there any action needed from us tonight on this? Or just informational?
It's really informational more than anything. If you had any questions, it is city property, so before they began undertaking improvements, I thought you ought to hear about what they're intending and have the opportunity to.
I just want, okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. I think the sketches look great. I think it's going to bring some new life to that memorial that definitely could use it.
So is that an okay then?
That is,
Okay.
is an okay from me, yes.
Okay. So we can go and cut the checks to the vendors then. Okay, perfect.
There we go. Look forward to seeing it.
That's great.
Thank you.
Do we need to make a motion on this, or?
I don't think so, sir.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, 15.
Amendments to Municipal Code Sidewalk Dining, Bill number 7496, ordinance number 9293.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Currently, the municipal code authorizes two types of licenses for sidewalk dining, either sidewalk dining or sidewalk alcohol consumption, only along Armour Road between Burlington and Gentry. Staff recently received an inquiry from a potential restaurant tenant on Swift about the possibility of expanding sidewalk dining beyond Armour Road. We suggested that business reach out to the council members from Ward 2, which covers downtown, regarding amending the municipal code, and Councilmember Smith did express his support for staff bringing this ordinance before you. The ordinance would expand authorization for sidewalk dining or sidewalk alcohol consumption to include Swift Street between 18th Avenue and 21st Avenue. The 2016 master plan does identify sidewalk activity as a key element for the downtown character area, including areas beyond Armour Road. So the amendment that's before you tonight, in addition to expanding that area, also makes some minor modifications regarding the information that needs to be submitted by an applicant, and also updates the references to City Code Enforcement Division to the Community Development Department. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Go ahead.
You think there's enough room on the sidewalk for such a?
It would be required for the applicant to show that there's enough room on the sidewalk.
I was going to ask one follow-up to that. There's an area that's scratched out here. It talks about which area, well, and now written as which area shall have a minimum width greater than 4 feet exclusive of any street, tree, grates, or wells. So is that like a cart? So there could be a portion where it's less than 4 feet because.
Well, street tree grates or tree wells really can't be considered an area where a pedestrian could pass with an accessible route. So we want to be clear that if you're submitting information in support of your application, we're asking applicants to identify where street tree grates or wells are so that we, they and the city are clear on, where those are located in terms of an accessible path.
All right, perfect. Okay, that clears. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Quick question. Are there any ones on Armour right now that would not meet the code because of the tree situation?
I really don't know the answer to that.
I know, I'm just trying to think, down Armour, there are some spots where sidewalk availability is there, but there are also trees, and I didn't want to catch a spot where, there's 4 feet, but there's a tree in the middle of it, and I'd imagine they'd be grandfathered in if they were not in compliance with this.
I imagine they would be too, as long as they had an active license.
Move for first reading.
Second.
Got a motion?
Yes, motion.
Got a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Chapter 4.30 Sidewalk Eating and Alcohol Consumption Licenses of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7496 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9293.
Second.
Call the roll?
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman? Yes. Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Chapter 4.30 Sidewalk Eating and Alcohol Consumption Licenses of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
16.
Budget Amendment, House Street Bump Out Permanent Measures, Resolution Number 20-012.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on Ms. Copeland.
At your January 21st meeting, council directed staff to take steps to make the pilot project for bump outs on Howell Road to a permanent installation instead of the temporary delineators that are on the street now. Staff has worked with our city engineer, Wilson and Company, to put together the concept that's before you tonight that would modify the intersections at 31st, 29th, and 27th to have permanent bump outs at each of these locations with a pedestrian median island adjacent to the crosswalk, and then improvements on the east side of the road to receive people as they are crossing the street in the crosswalk. So the 3 graphics that are in your packet show the improvements that Wilson and Company thinks would be good permanent improvements at these 3 locations. They have also estimated the cost of the construction at $47,000. That amount includes a 20% contingency. With a project of this size, we would need to go out for competitive bids. But because it is a smaller project, there is some uncertainty about how competitive the bids would be in total cost. They also estimate that the cost of bid plans to be prepared by Wilson & Company would be about $12,000. So the budget amendment before you tonight is for a total of $60,000 from the gaming fund to allow us to move forward on this project. If council approves this budget amendment, the next step would be a task order with Wilson & Company at your next agenda for them to prepare the bid plans to go out to bid. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yes.
It's a little hard to tell on the drawings that we have. The center pieces, which I think we've agreed are pretty important, the temporary ones, we ended up moving them around a little bit to get the position correctly. Are these going to sit exactly where those were? Because they look like they're a little like an oblong shape. I know that eastbound traffic turning north onto Howell has had some trouble making those turns in the original placements.
They would not sit in the exact same location. They would be behind the crosswalk. But also, when Wilson & Company does the bid plans, they'll be able to run the truck turning templates to ensure that these are located so that trucks could turn around them.
Did we budget for this?
No, we did not.
This is okay.
That's why we
didn't
needed
know
the
what we were
budget
doing,
amendment.
right?
That's right.
The
We
time
had
did
no
the budget.
idea. We didn't know what you would decide, and we didn't know which of the options that you might decide to move forward with, least expensive or most, so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Go ahead.
In there also, aren't they gonna take out that raised crosswalk that was there now?
My understanding is that the road district is resurfacing Howell this year, and at that point, the raised crosswalk could be removed.
Well, we don't have to remove it. The
They-
road district has discussed
Wilson
that.
and Company has said there's no reason to keep it.
Okay, well, if you want to take it out, we'll take her out.
All right, I move to approve resolution number 20012.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 17.
Award of contract, Macken Park Concert Shade Structure, resolution number 20-014.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hoffer.
I'm sorry, Kelly was going to do this presentation.
I'll call on Kelly Vititke, the Parks and Recreation Director.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor Stilo, council members. On March 5th of 2019, the City Council approved a budget amendment in the amount of $60,000 from the gaming fund to fund and purchase and installation of a shade structure to provide shade to those who perform at the festival shelter. The layout of the current structure does not offer any shade to the performers on stage from noon to sundown year-round. The architectural design and specifications for the construction of the structure were completed in July 2019 by Solar Shade USA with a balance of $55,750 to have it installed, and it was included in the 2020 gaming fund budget. A requisition for proposals for the purchase and installation of a shade structure was published on January 24th of 2020. Bidders were instructed to follow the dimensions and layouts of the plans that were included with the bid documents, which should be attached. And the city would accept structures from other manufacturers if deemed to be equivalent to the quality and design. 3 bids were submitted and opened on February 13th, 2020. AB Creative submitted a proposal in the amount of $38,738. After review, staff determined that their submittal was the lowest and best bid. A resolution awarding the contract to AB Creative has been prepared and for consideration tonight. Any questions?
Any questions?
I will move to approve resolution number 20014.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's get her in there.
Thank you.
I was going to ask if we can have the elders back to break it in.
Number 18.
Award of contract, Design Services, Macken Park Ball Field Number 1, resolution number 20-011.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. At its work session of November 5th, 2019, the City Council approved an agreement with the North Kansas City School District to cooperate in improving Macken Park Ball Field Diamond Number 1. In general, the agreement calls for the city to contract for the design and construction of improvements with the school district, contributing half of the cost over a 10-year period. Total budget for this project, including design and construction, is about $1.1 million. The agreement also provides that the city and the school district would jointly participate in the selection of a design professional. So the city did issue an RFQ, and a committee that consisted of staff representatives of the city, North Kansas City Parks and Recreation, and the school district interviewed 4 design firms. The committee is recommending the Clark Anderson Partners for this particular engagement. Clark Anderson has a great deal of experience in designing facilities of this nature, and their team did exhibit strong knowledge to us, and it clearly thought this project through to some degree prior to the interview. We have supplied their RFQ response. Their proposed lump sum fee of $70,000 is very reasonable. So we would recommend award a contract to the Clark Anderson Partners. Do you have any questions?
Any discussion? Yes, Don.
If this is approved, when will they start?
So the next step would be for them to meet with the advisory committee that was agreed upon to meet with them and provide input into the design. So I would immediately begin working to convene that committee. It's composed of 7 people, 2 from the city council. Currently, those are designated to be Councilmember Stewart and Councilmember Pearman, and then 2 from the Parks and Recreation Board and 2 from the school district. And then there is also consensus to include resident Mr. Ron Rodriguez, who has extensive knowledge of the ballpark. So I would work to get together those 7 people, along maybe with a couple of staff members, but not always easy to get 7 people together. But as soon as those 7 and the designer would be available to meet, we'd get them together to begin getting that input from them.
I'm assuming then the ball diamond will still be in use this year?
Yes, so we wouldn't expect construction to be complete until, to be ready for next season would be the goal, in 2021. Yes, sir. Rick?
And I might say that Mr. Rodriguez would be an excellent choice.
And we are planning to
His
include him.
experience goes to state level, and he's a real good gentleman.
So Councilmember Smith had just asked Councilmember Pearman, who's, since the time that that committee was formed, indicated she wouldn't be running again, continue to serve. My answer would
I think he
be,
wants
that's
my
up to the
spot.
council. I think you can designate anybody you like, whether they were a member of the council or not, so.
I think that's a great idea, because you have some experience in this area, as I understand.
Does any-
I think it would be a good choice.
You want my spot? You want him to have my
take
spot?
Valor's spot. Well, you're,
You keep your
You're not-
spot as
you're
long
not
as you
running
like.
again.
Yeah, you are.
You can have my
more than-
spot,
more than
Councilmember
qualified.
Smith, but you better look out for softball, that's all I have to say. So I also have some experience in this area.
Would we have to pay her to stay on it?
You would pay her the current amount that you're paying her, which would be
Zero.
Yeah, is it a paying position?
If she's allowed to stay on, I would vote to have her stay.
No, I'm okay, I'm okay.
Just
Okay,
one-
are you willing to take it?
Yes, I'll.
Okay.
I'll take the.
We'll
Sharks in the
assume that,
water.
we'll assume that Ms. Pearman is serving until I'm told otherwise. How's that? But what's before you now is
Yeah.
the resolution awarding the contract.
I'll move to approve resolution number 20011.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 19.
Four-way stop at intersection of 13th Avenue and Iron Street.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. The Rabbit Hole, located at 14th and Knox, requested that the city consider converting the intersection at 13th Avenue and Iron Street to a four-way stop. Currently, that intersection is set with stop signs for east-west traffic, but no control devices for north-south traffic. So in response to that request, the police department conducted an inquiry into the intersection, and based upon some of the findings that are indicated in the memo in your packet, does recommend that this particular intersection be converted to a four-way stop. So staff requests a council motion accordingly.
Any discussion? Tom?
If we so approve this, are there crosswalks and everything marked at this time?
No, sir.
Will we do that also? I know this is an industrial area, but there's gonna be people walking around down there and stuff.
Yes, sir. We could do that. I don't honestly know if at 13th and Iron, there would be need. Could we assess that? And
Correct. I mean,
Okay, sure, we'd be happy to look at that.
I'm just trying to be proactive and not reactive.
Sure. We'll take a look at that.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 20.
Budget amendment and approval of purchase police vehicle, resolution number 20-008.
Eric?
Thank you, sir. I'll call on the police chief, Kevin Freeman.
Yeah, I'm prepared to go under the bus on this one. So before you tonight is a budget amendment request for additional funding for our police vehicle line. If you recall, we requested $190,000 for the fiscal year for 4 frontline police vehicles and 1 administrative vehicle. When it was decided that you were going to place me as police chief, which I greatly appreciate still, we decided we didn't need that administration vehicle anymore. And so we reallocated some of that funding into a truck, F-150 for the patrol sergeant. Costs a little bit more money to outfit that truck. The truck itself really isn't that much more than the standard patrol vehicle, but as most of you know, about a month ago, my police vehicle, my take-home police vehicle, was stolen out of my driveway in Gladstone, subsequently crashed. So we needed to now reallocate funding for that administrative vehicle again. So putting that back in the budget puts us a little bit back over the line that we originally requested. So tonight we're asking for $7,000 more for our police vehicle line.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
Any progress made as far as perpetrators?
Not that I've heard.
Well, I'd like to suggest, I'll do it later, that we place a reward of at least $5,000 for the conviction of the perpetrators on this.
Is the car worth $5,000?
Well,
That's not the point.
I know, I just,
That rubs me the wrong way. We haven't had a police car stolen since the 1960s.
Move to approve.
Sounds like you need to move into North Kansas City.
I'd be a little safer.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and we got a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 21.
Memorandum of Understanding with Department of Health and Senior Services, naloxone, resolution number 20-013.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the fire chief, Dave Hargis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The North Kansas City Fire Department's been participating with the hospital in a community assessment program. One of the needs was to address opioid addiction and overdoses in the area. Earlier, about a year ago, Chief Freeman and I had talked about putting Narcan or naloxone on the police cars, but the cost of it and with the expiration of it didn't make it a viable option. However, in working with the North Kansas City Hospital, we found out there was a group out there called More that provides a grant program for police departments for each officer to have 2 doses of basically Narcan on them at all times. So the fire department's facilitating that MOU with the Department of Senior Services to provide that for them. And not only will it be if the police officers arrive on scene and see someone that's in the middle of an overdose, they can immediately administer that drug, which will counter effect the opioid. But also, there's also cases all over the country now of police officers doing searches and getting into the narcotics themselves, so they would be able to self-administer that themselves to prevent overdose. So that's what's before you tonight is the MOU, which will allow the state to provide us the naloxone free for our officers. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never heard of this program before. If a fire, what was I trying to say? I was going to say police officer, but a firefighter was to misdiagnose someone's addiction or not overdose. I'm having a hard time with words apparently on this subject.
Do we need some?
Yeah, if someone on council was, for example, but if you were to misdiagnose an overdose and you were to use this drug, Narcan, does it cause any sort of other negative effects?
No, that's the good thing about this drug. As it is, if you administer it to somebody that it's not needed for, there's no side effects or nothing else happens.
Okay.
It just doesn't
If you make
work.
a mistake in the diagnosis, then it's okay.
That's right.
Neutral.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So it was really hard to get that out.
Right.
It's good to have something and not need it than to need it and not have it, but have we had any opiate overdoses
We have had
last year?
We have had several in the last year. We've had several this year actually as well.
So it's better then.
It's not something you hear about every day, but we deal with it on a regular basis.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 22.
Letter agreement and indemnity agreement for use of parking lot owned by 114 Armour LLC for Snake Saturday Parade and other events. Resolution number 20-009.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, pending before you this evening, actually, the next 2 items are indemnity agreements for the continued use for the Snake Saturday Parade each year on properties that are controlled by now 2 separate legal entities, 114 Armour LLC and 408 Armour LLC. Ultimately, these are property owned by Northtown Devco. This will allow us to use the parking lot for Snake Saturday Parade and its related activities. And we're talking about the parking lot that's along 18th Avenue on the north side between Howell and Fayette, as well as the one on 18th Avenue that's south of, the best way I can describe it is where Dr. Pileggi's office had been for many, many years. And, excuse me, neither one of these LLCs charge the city anything for the use of it, but they do indicate, if someone gets hurt, they want us to indemnify them. We've worked with Crystal and I have worked with our insurance people. They've reviewed the indemnification letter, the letter agreement that spells out our insurance obligations. They did need, and they were very cooperative in doing so, NT Realty, who worked on this on behalf of the two LLCs. We didn't have as much of one type of insurance as they had asked for. We indicated that to them, and they reduced it down to, so we didn't have to buy any additional insurance. So be glad to answer any questions for you. Just so you know, the same indemnity agreement, the same letter agreement is also signed by Northland Festivals.
Any discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 23, that's basically the same thing, isn't it?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 24.
Renewal of Medical Director Contract, Bill number 7495, ordinance number 9292.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on the fire chief, Chief Harkins.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is our yearly contract with our medical director, Dr. Stephen Russell. And so this is just the formality every year. We re-sign the contract with him, and this is, I believe, the third year in a row there's been no cost increase in any of the things associated with this. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Move to approve.
First reading, I
First
think.
reading, sorry.
Second. Second, your first reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a contract by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Stephen L. Russell, M.D., for professional medical advisory services and related professional services.
I move that bill number 7495 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9292.
Second.
Call a roll.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a contract by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Stephen L. Russell, M.D. for professional medical advisory services and related professional services.
25.
Approval of license agreement 1800 Swift, bill number 7494, ordinance number 9291.
Eric?
Thanks, sir. I'll call on Mr. Barzey.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, before you this evening is a request for what I'd call a very, very small area for a license agreement. 1800 Swift, formerly known as River Races, is being converted into, has a new owner of the property, number one, El Canelo Restaurant, a Mexican restaurant, and when they are redoing it, the architect, Kathy Warman, believes that it's best if it be a flat front. If you know right now, and there's a photograph there, it's kind of indented, and that's why it's not needed. Now the glass door is going to open out into the sidewalk area, which I might add is not unusual in our commercial area. But it's a small area, about 3 feet by 3 feet, so that they can legally install that door and be able to open it and use it. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have regarding this, but it's a typical license agreement that can be revoked by the city at any time.
Oh, I don't really have the question on what you're asking, but you said the River Aces, does it go beyond that, or is it just gonna be where the River Aces?
I don't know, Ms. Copeland, do you know the details of that?
I just want to kind of picture how big it's gonna be, whether River Aces by itself, or I don't even know what's next to the old River Aces now.
Yeah, I'm really, Mr.
It was Steele's
Harris.
Bookstore, but sorry, we're not able to answer it at the moment.
I'll be glad to get you that information,
Well,
though.
I'll wait till they open it, I guess.
Yeah, is there an ETA on, probably no ETA also, when they're gonna open? Staff have any idea? Nothing's been issued.
I don't know.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Podge LLC regarding real property generally located at 1800 Swift Street in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7494 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9291.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr? Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a license agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Podge LLC regarding real property generally located at 1800 Swift Street in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Mr. Eric.
I think you have approval of accounts due and payable, item 26.
Oh. Okay. Well, we aren't gonna pay the bills this time. 26.
Approving accounts due and payable by the city through February 28th, 2020, bill number 7497, ordinance number 9294.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through February 28th, 2020.
I move that bill number 7497 be placed on second final reading and passes ordinance number 9294.
Second.
Okay, now.
Councilmember Smith?
Oh,
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through February 28th, 2020.
we don't wanna hear from you now. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to begin by calling on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
At your last meeting, council approved a construction contract with Mega Industries for the Armour Road Phase 2B project to finish the infrastructure out there. We today received a change order from them. When the contractor went to order the water line, which was called out in the bid documents as PVC pipe, they discovered that the lead time for delivery of that is 8 to 12 weeks. If we make a change to ductile iron pipe, then the lead time is only 3 weeks, but the cost for that is $7,287.79. For this project, time is definitely a consideration. The longer it takes for us to finish this work, there's an impact to the construction of the Starbucks at that location. So the contractor did not provide for approval of a change order except by the city council. We're coming to you for some direction on whether we can approve this change order so that they can move forward and then have formal action on your next agenda.
How much is it again?
The cost or the time?
Both. I wanted the cost, but both.
The cost of the change order is an additional $7,287.79.
And you said it's 3 weeks lead time instead of 8 to 12 weeks. What's the
right.
difference in the pipe as far as, I know PVC is plastic, the duct iron, I mean, as far as engineering wise or durability wise, can you give us the difference in, is it higher quality, I'm guessing, the iron then?
They're probably about the same. We think one of the benefits for changing it to ductile iron is that we have had in the Armour Road area some problems with plastic shavings in the pipes. So as the individual component developments have gone in, they've had to do more flushing of the lines to get to the point where the water is clear and they can, move forward with their connections. So the ductile iron will obviously not have any plastic shavings. But, in terms of lifespan, the PVC is as good as the ductile iron, and that's why it was originally called out. And it's obviously slightly cheaper.
Okay, so we're doing it for a time.
Yes, sir.
This change order is mainly about the lead time.
So we need a motion then.
Well, we don't have a motion before you, we don't have an item before you, but if you indicated to us it was all right, we would get the mayor to sign the change order, and then we'd have it to you before your formal approval at your next meeting. It just came up today, and so rather than wait 2 weeks, we thought we'd ask. In the past, I've asked the mayor to do it, and then I've brought it to you and say it's already done, so please approve it. Tonight, I'm asking you if it's okay before we proceed.
I think it's a good idea.
There's no long-term repercussions of that decision, negative.
No.
Yeah, I think it's good.
Well, to move this thing forward, I'd say let's do
Yeah,
it.
okay, if I'm not hearing objection, we'll plan on that, and it'll be on your next agenda. Thank you. And then Armour Road,
So with the closure of the old Quick Trip at Armour and Lynn, we have a right turn lane on Armour Road that, on westbound Armour there into the Quick Trip. We've spoken with the engineer for Armour Road, WSP, and they've indicated that there's, strictly speaking, no requirement to have a right turn lane there. And we could convert that to a merge between Macken and Lynn, so that there's less confusion for traffic in that area. But we need your direction, whether you would like us to move forward with that.
it used to be that it would be a forced right turn at the QT, and that would end that lane. Now it's just a dead end. So as Sarah indicates, our feeling would be that we modify it to make a merge.
If something goes in there, hopefully eventually something goes in there, although it may not be as high traffic as Quick Trip, would that be reevaluated again, or
Could
would
be.
we? Okay. So just right now, we don't need it, and that's why we're merged.
Yes.
Could that lane, and since I use, that right there at the post office.
Knox?
Knox, yeah. Yes, I live at 24th and Knox. Why can't that lane go on down to Knox so you can turn right there instead of stand over?
It could
It'd
be
pretty
done.
convenient.
It could be done that way. The engineer looked at possibility. His suggestion was make the transition at Macon. Another possibility was at Knox, it would take some parking spaces out, be a little bit more, not as easy to do as at Macon, but it could be done that way if that would be your
I
preference.
think it'd be a better solution, because I've heard a lot of complaints about it.
Yeah.
And I've been turning at Taco Bell there instead of going down where I'm closer to my home. I think it'd just be more convenient. Check it out with the engineer and see what they say.
I agree with Richard. That makes a lot more sense. It looks like if people would be able to see that better.
We'll bring more information to you at your next meeting. Sarah, did you have anything else? No. I'd call on the Public Works Director, Pat Hoover.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure if any of you noticed, but the traffic signal in front of Dairy Queen near at Howell and Armour just fell down yesterday out of nowhere. And Stephen Roberts even looked at the video, and no one was pushing it. A car didn't wreck into it. And so it ends up that it's the type of signal that is bolted into a concrete slab, concrete foundation. And it rusted out. The bolts are really rusted out bad. And that could have really hurt someone. It actually went out into the street about 6 feet. And so I just wanted to say our action is going to be Municipal Services is going to go look. There's only 14 of these. Most of our traffic signals are large poles with masts on them. These are kind of standalone, and they're old. So we're going to review. There's a little hatch you can look at toward the bottom of the hole and see if the bolts are rusted. I'm assuming they're going to be, but we're going to do that this week. And if they are, I really want to move forward to replacing those for public safety purposes. I came up with an estimate, by the way, that it would be, it could be charged out of street light traffic signal account at around $7,000.
You say replacing them, you mean replacing the bolts?
Yes,
Yeah.
Our contractor would take down the pole and put in reinstall new bolts in the plate, and then it would be secure.
But if that's what, we would plan on just doing that for any that are required. We don't want this happening again, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Pat. I'll call on the Assistant City Administrator, Kim Nakahota.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update on the public art sculpture, Bloom by C.J. Chen, over in Richards Park. Just to kind of briefly go over the timeline, it was installed in late October. The engineer, which was hired by the artist, finalized the light specs that were going to be used in that sculpture. That happened in mid-November. And unbeknownst to any of us, those specific lights had a lead time of 12 to 16 weeks. So that was a major project delay, which is why that sculpture kind of sat in a interim period for some time. We did receive those lights here in North Kansas City in mid to late January when they were installed by our electrical contractor. You may have seen that those lights are operational. This particular project, again, with the engineering specs that were approved by the artist, required 5 different concrete pours. 3 of them for the sculpture itself, 2 of them for the curbing. Those concrete pours were finalized in mid-February, and the plaza was reconstructed. Actually, it was technically completed late last week. You may have noticed that there is some orange fencing. That fencing will remain around the sculpture until the landscaping is installed. The landscaping was designed to be a natural deterrent. They will be thorny bushes to keep people from approaching and climbing on the sculpture. So we don't believe that fencing should be taken down until that landscaping is in place to deter people from approaching the sculpture. Depending on the weather is when Municipal Services will actually install that landscaping, and then once that landscaping is installed, the temporary fencing will come down. We are planning a dedication service to be in the spring. We're working with the artist. She just said she would like to come back to formally dedicate that. I don't know if you remember, but when it was installed, it was very cold and snowy. So we'd like to host a public event when it's not too cold for people to come out and enjoy and actually meet the artist. So I thought I'd just give you a quick update of where we are on that particular project.
And lastly, just a few from me. I would note that the upcoming city items have noticed in your packet. Also note that yard waste collection resumes tomorrow. And lastly, but not least, I would like to introduce our new finance manager, Nicholas Hawkins. Nick, could you stand up? Nick joined us yesterday, was lately from the city of Topeka. Before that, he worked with the city of Kansas City, and he began his career in municipal government as an undergraduate at William Jewell, working for the city of North Kansas City as an intern. And I'm glad we didn't drive him out of the profession. So welcome, Nick. And you'll notice that Shirley Land, our current finance manager, is still here. They are working together for a 3-week period before Shirley is set to retire on March 20th. And we will be working with Shirley, who I appreciate has offered to assist Nick with the transition as might be necessary. So she'll stay on the payroll for a while and be available on an hourly basis to assist with transition activities as he may have any questions or need any particular assistance. So welcome, Nick. And that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
All right. Nick, welcome to the jungle. Happy to have you here. In addition to yard waste pickup, tomorrow is also large item pickup, I believe. So get your large items out to the curb. Don't forget, because noon tomorrow, you remember, and it's too late. So get them out there now. Also want to thank everybody who came out to express opinions and views. While we may not all agree, it's good to have that level of engagement. It's nice to see the chairs full. So keep coming, keep bringing your thoughts, and we're going to do our best to listen and process and make the best decision with those. So thank you.
I just want to reiterate that. I appreciate everyone coming out earlier for our work session, and also I want to say thank you to Glinda Jacobson for her service, and also congratulations for her reappointment.
Echo the comments on everybody coming out tonight. This is why we're here, to listen to you, to both sides, and try to make an informed decision. I wanted to wish everybody a happy Snake Saturday. Hopefully, like Minnie said, we'll have some great weather and great crowd. So good luck to them. And I want to welcome Nick to our ranks here in North Kansas City. And looking forward to seeing the shade structure there at Macken Park for those Friday night concerts when it gets built. So that's all I've got.
Well, I'd like to say congratulations to Shirley on her new adventure and retirement. I wouldn't come back to work for double the pay, so I hope you enjoy it. I do have a problem that I like the inspection bureau of the city, of the residential, to take on, do a better job on, is the big trash set out. I've had neighbors had stuff out for 3 weeks, you know, waiting for the big trash pickup. And I tell them, I said, that's the first Wednesday of the month, you know, and I'd like to see some enforcement on that. I mean, you know, it's the old neighborhoods that I live in, you know, the new neighborhoods have their homeowners association. It's not going to happen down there, and that's a good thing for them. But it's just they're allowing these people to do this, and evidently they're not doing anything about it.
That's a public works issue with trash. It's not an enforcement by property maintenance.
So then, whoever.
Right, we, the city staff will take a look at that. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And I would like to say something good about you know, we say something bad about the old neighborhoods. And the 800 block of 21st Street, which, you know, has a lot of multifamily stuff. But there's one landholder there is gutting one of the buildings, it looks like. And so that's a good step. It's one of the 2-story houses, and he's gutting first and second floor, it looks like. So I hope once they start a project, you'll make sure they do a good job. But somebody's trying to improve the neighborhood one step at a time, I guess.
Well, I also would like to thank everyone for coming out, and I would have liked to have heard a little more opinions from everyone, but I do appreciate everyone coming out. And a big thank you to Glenda Jacobson for her years of service on the hospital board, and I hope you enjoy retirement. I'm sure you will, Shirley. And one other thing I'd like to put forward, and maybe have it on, I'd like to see it on the next council agenda if it's possible. And that is, I would like a reward of at least $5,000 for the perpetrator or perpetrators who stole our police car. Would there be any problems with that? I mean, I don't know if we could advertise maybe through tips.
We'll put it on your agenda, sir. I'd like, when we do put it on your agenda, I'd just like the police department to sort of comment on the likelihood of being able to catch somebody at this point. But we can certainly have that on.
If we don't catch anybody, it won't be out any money. And it would be for the conviction.
We'll put it on the agenda, sir.
Thank you.
To get back to the big pickup day, I don't know how we can reiterate, since we changed it to limited to 5 items now. I've got another neighbor around the corner from me that moved out. There's another pile of trash out in front of his house that's 20 feet deep, 7 foot tall, 10 foot wide out in their driveway, and it's not going to get picked up tomorrow.
No, sir, but they are responsible for it, so we will, if you'll let us know the address. Whoever is the owner of.
Well, yeah, but it's a rental house, so who knows?
Right, but there is a landlord. So we can, as we did with another home in your neighborhood that was rented, we did contact the owner, and they did manage to get that picked up by a contractor. So if you'll let us know, we'll look into it and do what we can.
There's a way that we can reiterate to whoever that big pickup's only allowed 5 items.
We will certainly the next time we do an article on trash service, we'll reiterate that. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good luck.
I've got nothing else to add this evening.
I've had my say tonight.
Well, I guess that's it. I don't got nothing. The next item, 30.
Number 30, consideration of a request to hold in recess into an executive session as requested by the city councilor to be held on this date on a litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0211.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Call the roll.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Steffen?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
31.
Consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Pearman?
Yes?
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Stewart?
Yes.
Councilmember Stefan?
Yes.
Councilmember Farr?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember DeLong?
Yes.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Second.